Okay, that's great. So many familiar faces here. Yeah. Okay. So here the weather is very, very nice. As you know, I was in Dharamsala last about 10, 12 days from 20th to 1st of December, and had a very good time this time, because my previous visits to Dharamsala, the weather was always miserable, and there's so many things to do. But this time, weather was really, really great, and less meetings. So I had more time to go for a long walk in those mountains. It was very, very good. I missed going for long walk. And, this time I got really good time to go for a walk. And also, several times had a great opportunity to see His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, receive teachings and participate in the longer prayer. So together, this time, my trip to Dharamsala was great. And I said to one of my colleague abbots, I said, if Dharamsala weather shows all the time like this, then I'm all right to travel 5 hours from Sera to Bangalore by car, and another 5 hours from Amritsar to Dharamsala. That's okay. So anyway, yes, I had a very good time in Dharamsala. Okay, so we'll start this last, the last gathering for this year, I think, because after this, I'm sure you people also going to be busy because of coming Christmas, family commitments, social commitments, and other commitments. Also, I also have commitments, to carry my responsibility from the monastery. So I think from 14th or 15th, I'm leaving from here to travel, the outside India, and I'm not coming back a month. I'm coming back middle of January. So then, according to my schedule, we'll have another 3 or 4, the Sundays, this kind of gathering. So in this time, today will be our last, gathering in this year. Oh yeah. Okay, so we will start with setting our motivation according to the teachings of the Buddha, that is taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and also holding the altruistic awakened mind, bodhicitta, not only for the gathering, but also in our daily lives. In our daily lives, try to hold these two minds, refuge and the bodhicitta, as a part of our way of thinking, way of living, way of interacting with the other living beings and the environment. And that will be great. That will be great. If we if we are able to live our life with these two minds with us, either very actively or more sometimes in a subconscious level. And that is what we need to train ourselves all the time. Though some of those very amazing deities, visualizations, very inspiring mantra recitations, and a very sophisticated philosophical arguments, explanations, these are great, but as a Buddhist, being able to hold, able to feel, and able to think that the Buddha, the historical Buddha, or Buddhas, those enlightened beings, not only past, but also the present, those great enlightened beings, as our teachers or mentors, all the time being able to feel, think, as our teacher, mentors, and also all the time, able to think the teachings, the Buddha's, the historical Buddha's teachings, and subsequently those great masters' commentaries, and those teachings are something that we should apply in our daily lives when we interact with living beings, and or when we live alone by ourselves, and observing our the mental states, feelings, thoughts, being able to observe with the lens of teachings of the Buddha and those great teachers, and to experience, no matter how small it might be, love, compassion, altruism, wisdom, realizing impermanence, wisdom, realizing emptiness, so on and so forth, to all the time, to refresh, to recall within our lives, within our mental states, as a dharma, as our refuge, and also those sangha members, whether they are ordained or non-ordained, but that we know people who live their lives, at least they try very hard to live their lives according to the teachings of the Buddha, as close as the teachings of the Buddha and those great teachers. So, living with that kind of mind, that kind of thought will be very, very useful, helpful. Then, we will feel there's a refuge, though outside things are not great, internally, we are getting old. Our bodies are slowly, falling, sort of getting old, and mentally, not that as sharp as that we used to have. But still, when we are able to live this kind of thought, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are our refuge, not only right here and now, but also coming weeks, months, years, decades, and life after. Whatever ups and downs that we face day by day or week after week, sometimes good, sometimes not good, but regardless of that kind of fluctuation, if we are able to hold the three jewels as our refuge, that will be very, very helpful. And that is part of our setting the right motivation, and also bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, that the mind sincerely, genuinely from the heart, open to all living beings, being able to think, able to feel, that the well-beings of all living creatures. Though in the practical level, we may not be able to reach out to all living creatures. Practically, we may be able to reach very few people, few living beings around us that we interact. But mentally, be able to open, able to embrace that all living beings, well-beings, not just ourselves, not just our loved ones, not just our friends, not just colleagues, but of course their well-being our own well-being should be included, but also extend to well-beings of all living beings. Then, from the Mahayana teachings point of view, the well-being is not only have a good food, a good shelter, good friendship, good health, not only that sort. Of course, those are important because right here and now, what is helpful, what brings joy and happiness, that is right here and now. These are also very relevant, for all living beings, but also from the Mahayana teachings point of view, or we should have we should have the ability to think the well-beings of long term. That is, be free from dukkha and the origins of dukkha. The origins of dukkha. That is, the attachment, aversion, and ignorance. So, those are the two minds that we should cherish, that we should see as have a tremendous value to ourselves and to others, and all the other, the practice that we do, the recitation, visualization, Vajrayana practice, start from the refuge and the bodhicitta. Without these two, as the what you call the cornerstones to practice, without these two, then all those very what you call the fascinating visualization and inspiring mantra recitation, those good, the full benefit won't be there if these two mental states are not there. So therefore, very, very useful. Then of course, on top of that, that the last our gathering that talking about importance of realizing the nature of emptiness of all the things and events, and that realization, that understanding. When these three realizations are present, then we can make, that then the what you call the, if you want to make a pot or whatever with the clay which is very flexible, which is very, so then we can make anything from that clay. If the clay is not flexible, if the clay is not rich and not have those kind of binding energy, then no matter how skillful that we have, but the shape won't be that great. So it is like that. So therefore, one of my teachers used to say, when I was here as a student, young monk, those days, the everything compared to the food, clothing, accommodation, including study books, everything compared to these days, more or less, nothing. Of course, there were few, but compared to these days, nothing. But still, whatever we have, within the samsaric mental state, tend to select the better ones. And quite often, one of my teachers says, these are the not things as a monk to select or to have a very selective, or to have that kind of very choosy. I want this, don't want that. What as a monk you should choose or select the refuge and bodhicitta, those two minds, as a the valuable, as a in Tibetan called ring tang. Ring tang is a value. When we have things, it can be sentimental value, can be a money value, or whatever. But when there's a value, so as a follower of the teachings of the Buddha, and within the teachings of the Buddha, many of us follow, the Bodhisattva and the teachings and the Vajrayana teachings. Then, of course, our basic necessities, food, shelter, medicine, friendships are important. We should have value. But as a follower of the teachings of the Buddha, then these two mental states are something that we should see have a tremendous value, not only right here and now, not only in this lifetime, not only to ourselves, but also to the many people, not only in this life, for many lifetimes. So that is something, the important. So I'm sure, you all do this, and as this nice expression used by some of those Kadamba master, when we have a square piece of cloth, and when we pull from the one corner of that piece of cloth, entire three other corners come towards that corner when you pull, and that is what our Dharma practice and Dharma learning, studying, meditation, actual practice should be in that way. So reading, discussion, contemplation, and all these, in different topics, different subjects, eventually, pull towards the refuge, bodhicitta, and wisdom realizing emptiness. Then there's this, what you call we'll get the benefits. Sometimes, recently I felt myself, some of my Dharma readings, some of my, the contemplations, and those things are very much scattered. Sometimes reading that, sometimes reading this, sometimes thinking this, sometimes thinking that, sometimes visualizing this deity, sometimes visualizing that deity, hoping one will give me immediate, instant enlightenment. But that is not real there. So, the scattered practice, reading, sometimes it happens, but then we should realize, that is my reading, studying, practice is more scattered, but I should bring. So where should we bring? to bring in those three areas, the refuge, bodhicitta, wisdom realizing, emptiness. His Holiness Dalai Lama, the reason when I was in Dharamsala, when he gave 2 days teaching was announced. He is going to read Nagarjuna's Mula Madhyamika Karika, the root of wisdom, Nagarjuna's, that amazing famous text, requested by some of those Korean followers. And the first day, he even didn't read a single line from the text, and he repeated again and again, the importance of, the practicing, enhancing bodhicitta, and the same combining wisdom, realizing emptiness. One of his attendants kept reminding him, this is the text he has to read, and because we were quite close sitting, and I noticed, he was saying, no, that's fine, don't need to read the text. So like that. And the next day, yes, he read maybe 10 or 12 chapters, but just read, didn't give that much, that much commentaries. But he again, next day also repeated again and again, the bodhicitta and wisdom, realizing emptiness. And that is something which, we should remind ourselves the importance, eventually come to there, no matter how far that we go, our reading, receiving teachings, meditation, different types, eventually come to point. And point is in those three realizations. Yeah. So with that, we will say the refuge and bodhicitta lines 3 times, and hold these 2 minds as our main motivation. Sanje chöda tsoje chonamba chanjo pado dane jaso che dagi jenso jibe tsonamanje dola penje sanje dubara. Sanje chöda tsoje chonamama chanjo pado dane jaso che dagi jenso jibe tsonamanje dola penje sanje dubara. Sanje chöda tsoje chomamamba chanjo pado dane jaso che dagi jenso jibe tsonamanje dola penje sanje jobara. Refuge and the bodhicitta as our main motivation to participate in this gathering, and also how to live our lives. Now I will chant the cherishing mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, and you should also chant. People like to chant, and while verbally saying the cherish a mantra, 6 syllables. Mentally hold very strong loving kindness and great compassion towards all living beings. No one is excluded. Oneself is included. One's own loved ones are included. All living beings are included. That when you express loving kindness and great compassion. So that's what we are going to do now. Om Mane Oh, yeah. So the text that we are reading is one of those Kadamba masters' texts, that collection of, the Kadamba masters started by this great Indian master, Atisha, who came to Tibet around 11th century. And he taught extensively, the mind training. And from that, this Kadamba tradition, came. And from that, this particular, the sets of teachings called the mind training, Lojong. Though entire teachings of the Buddha, is mind training. Entire teachings of the Buddha is mind training, training our mind, really reshaping our thoughts and emotions from more constructive, more, what you call the virtues, less destructive, less, unhelpful. So that in general, entire teachings of the Buddha is mind training, but in Tibet, the sets of teachings is particularly labeled. Sometimes it is called Tekjen Lojong. Tekjen Lojong, that means Mahayana Mind Training. So, it is particular, but that group of teachers, 11th, 12th, 13th century, so that we are reading one of those from that collection, one of those nice texts, which is called, the text that we are reading is called How to Train the Mind Within the Expanse of Appearance, Emptiness and Empty Echoes. And that's what we are reading this text. And out of this text, first, so far, last two, our gathering are focused mainly, it has three main subjects. The first subject is on emptiness. This appearance, the title of the text, appearance and emptiness. That is really very much the first topic, and that is the style of the teaching, as we saw, as we have seen, very much like a dialogue. The Dromtönpa, who was the Tibetan, who was the Tibetan disciples of, in fact, the principal disciples of the Atisha, Lama Atisha, Dromtönpa. So Dromtönpa asked questions, and then Atisha delivered the answers. And the first part of the question, how to deal with the, when our appearance of the world, our appearance, what we perceive, what we see, what we believe, how, what we have, including our identity, including our body, including our, feelings, thoughts, beliefs, and so on and so forth. They appear to us on a particular manner. And how should we see them? How should we view them? Should we view them as they appear to us, or we should view them, differently? Though, there's a table, there's a computer, there's a books, there are books, there are feelings, memories, fears, concerns, and whether they exist or not, that is not the question. But they appear to us, and we believe according to how they appear to us. They appear to us something out there, not very much related to our, how we, see them, how we believe them, how we perceive them. Very much out there, very solid, concrete, independent, in and of themselves. No matter either they are physical matters or inner non-physical things, like for example, a few days ago, when I was coming back from Dharamsala, my last part of my journey is a long car journey, as just mentioned earlier, from Bangalore airport to here. Though car is very, very good car, but it is long journey. And the kind, my driver, who was a monk, wants to avoid, there is a endless road work, it is saying in the UK. But here is, motorway, endless road work, while the, traffics are carry on. So, and he kindly wants to avoid that, that part of the road work, and he went to another motorway, which is a little bit longer, but eventually he has to come back to, towards the direction where the monastery is. So after 2-3 hours in that new highway, then he has to come to the small countryside road. Roads are really good. Condition is very good, but it's small. My point is this: it was around 1:32. The villages are completely quiet. Not as no human beings can be seen in there. So that triggered some of my childhood while I was in here. Those completely quiet in the evening, no television, nothing. So that kind of very concrete memory of my past, that triggered by seeing that kind of village after village, very quiet, but a few houses here and there, and they have a, 1 or 2 street light bulbs here and there, but nothing, no human beings. And some villages, they have cows outside tied with it. So that triggered a very strong my childhood memory while living in the poor village, very quiet. So that kind of very solid, very concrete, very emotional triggering that kind of memory. Very like independent in and of itself as a memory. So all this, and so this first part of the text, with that nice story, very, very nice story, which is very, very helpful to look at. The two friends, one is very simple, not very much questioning how lives or how wants to improve the lives, just carry on in a routine, making threats and looking after his family. One is very active, constantly asking questions, learning things, and that sort of things. And once seriously wants to help his friends who was poor, very simple, and that the story's background itself has a tremendous meaning. Then the story itself really clearly demonstrates, the appearance, reality. Ultimate reality is not how things and events appear to us, even though, very, very real feeling of having second family, having another 3 children, and going through all those things. Yet, everything that what he experienced is in that, magician's trick, and so on and so forth. And that is clearly shows, demonstrates appearance and reality is not the same. Reality is very, very different from how things and events appear to us. And that is the teaching of emptiness. And then, after that, there are, for example, people who have the text, page 284, after the first part of the paragraph, then the second paragraph, the next paragraph start with asking, this question saying, do not forsake inquiry, householder, Shirman. So in other words, you are not asking, you are not probing any questions to what you see, what you believe, and that is not right. We should probe, we should analyze to the appearance of the things and events. And this is next one is this ultimate mode of beings, which is primordially empty. So when you analyze, when you investigate, then this very that kind of very independent in and of themselves, standing out there, not very much related to our perception, our belief, our thought, and that is wrong. So that part is. All these are, then coming. I will not read this part now. Then the next part, which is page 285. Then Dom asks. So Dom continually recognize all things as being. Atisha encourage Dom. So continually recognize all things as being the same in the sense empty or absence of inherent, intrinsic, ultimate entity, and no matter how concrete, solid they appear to us. Then the Dom asks, are there other that kind of nice analogies or examples to show us the reality of the things and events, like the previous story, that illusion, like similar to that illusion. Are there other the examples or analogies that we can learn the reality, ultimate reality of the things and events? Then there are these certain things are explained, saying dream is one of them, Then if there's people who don't have dream, what should they do? That sort of asking. They're very down to earth, very, the asking questions are very much like a friend, like a very much, the close friendship, like or if people who don't have dream, then what should they do? And it is when I was preparing, reading this part, quite often some of you have learned this when many of you have studied, many texts related to emptiness, and some of you have studied that the foundation Buddhist thoughts. In one of those texts, I can't remember, either in the second two truths or on the fifth on emptiness, are called the King of Concentration Sutra. One of those sutras called King of Concentration, Dingezhigyabdo. And in that sutra, there are 10 analogies are explained to demonstrate, the emptiness. Appearance and realities are different. And within that, one is mirage. Mirage, yeah. So when we talk about mirage, people who never been to, mirage, you call it, when you walk in, what you call the desert. Yeah, anyway, with the sun, and you have this image of, water. And the people who never been to that, then they have no understanding of mirage because they never experienced that. And that's also possible. And there's also possible some people don't have any dream. And so on. So there's this nice, the back and forth, Dom asking, what are the other examples that you can, another one is called echoes. Echo is one of the, and so it continue like this. Yeah, that continues. Then and the same page 285. Then line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. From the bottom up, line 11. Then there is a slightly different. The questions are moved into slightly different, subject. Though still on emptiness, but slightly different subject. And that is what here. What are skilled at the questioning as well? So the Atisha was saying you are very skillful asking these questions, and that's the one. Then the next one, Dom asks, what should one do if one hears insulting words? And I thought that's what very, very practical questions. And every now and then we face that kind of situation in our daily lives. When somebody insults us, when somebody accuses us or accuses our family members, our friends, our colleagues, of course, we will react. That is our, the common response. We will react. So what kind of reaction that we should have when somebody insults ourselves, our loved ones, our friends, or even, as a whole, like a country. If somebody insults my country, how I'm going to react, and so on and so forth. That was many years ago when I was in London. I read or I watched one of those documentaries. I was told, the British or the English were very polite. Even if somebody insults their country, they will not say anything. They will just pretend they haven't heard though they either I read or I watch a documentary. But some other countries are not like that. If they insult the country, they will immediately react very negatively or whatever. So anyway, so that kind of reaction is there. And this question, the Dom asks, what should one do if one hears insulting words? Treat them like echoes and let them go. So that is what here the teaching, let them go, which is very common, letting go practice. Letting go practice. It is, I think, one time, I can't remember when. Yeah, when I was leading reading one of those which you call the Mahamudra text last year, and I had explained a little bit on this. Letting go practice will come when we have done the basic works, like understanding of nature of impermanence, like the understanding of law of cause and effects, and here, on understanding of emptiness. When we have those, understandings are very much in our mental level, then letting go will work. Otherwise, letting go practice may become suppressing, what we feel, what we, or it might be very, very painful, so on and so forth. So this one, here, Atisha's answer was, treat them like echoes and let them go. So now here echoes, relate to the early subject like a dream, like an echo, like a magicians, the illusions, and so on and so forth. Though the words may appear, culturally, socially, or emotionally very painful, sometimes culturally, sometimes socially, sometimes emotionally, when people say certain words, certain, expressions, but they're all in the process of context, isn't it? When we talk about culturally, that expression is very insulting. People who don't have that culture, no matter how much that word is said in front of that person, nothing, and also, the social and also emotional, certain words, certain expressions, even in word itself, expression itself may not be that kind of very harsh, but when the person is mentally in a very, what you call the unhappy state, even that words, sometimes words might be, expression might be quite, harsh, but if the person mental state is very still, stable, that harsh expression, may not. So like an echo. It is not saying here, it is not saying you won't hear, the insulting words. It is not saying you will not hear those harsh words, but try to understand, within the context of all the circumstances. It is not that person. Sometimes, same expression to say to the same person, but said by two different people, our reaction will be different. How we receive will be different. Isn't it? That is how, one thing which, I keep saying this, when this kind of context, it is very nice, when our, loved ones, in particular those small children, breaks our china, those cups, very valuable. We may not, though it might be a little bit hard, but may not be that much. We can say, oh, because child don't understand the value and so on and so forth. If that same cup was broken by, an adult person, and particularly a person you don't like it, that will be extremely, hurtful. And like that, the same cup, same action, broken, but by the different situation, by the different hour. So that is how clearly, those things are really happening. Cup was broken, but our feeling of hurt is differently. We react differently. So this is what here, one thing which is useful to remember. Then the Dom moves on to another one. Teach us a method that would prevent such things. In that case, Dom, relinquish, taking life and let go. So this is talking about, the harming others' body, others, the physical, and that is one thing. So now what we can see, what we are seeing here, after teaching emptiness, then we can see now more practically what we can do, using that understanding of emptiness, and then practically what we can do, in our daily lives, in our. Okay, then we're going to move to another next page, page 286. Then Dom asks, don't you have other methods to speak of besides this? So besides this, talking about emptiness, don't you have other subject to talk beside the nature of emptiness? Then here Atisha moved to explain that profound teaching on cultivation of what you call the bodhicitta, and within the different techniques here, Atisha straight went to the method or the teachings taught by Shantideva, the exchanging oneself with others and then taking and giving. So here, what Atisha said, mentally take upon yourself all sufferings, Dom. This is essential for others, but it is difficult to come by. Dom, it is true that embracing others' sufferings does not come about if one does not take them. So this is what here, this part of the exchange, I found very, very, what you call the frank and honest in her exchange. And the Doms asking the questions are very, very frank. And there's another one which comes, next one, it says, if one takes them all, will that come about? Whatever the case may be, train in this way. So Dom says, if I do this, mentally to take all the sufferings of the living beings upon me, will that really going to happen? And will the living beings will be free from suffering? Will that really going to happen? And I found this very, very, honest question, and quite often asked in the West. And when we talk about this is just imagination, not going to happen, and so on and so forth. And here, Atisha's answer was also very honest. He says, whatever the case may be, whether it's real, you take, and the others be free from suffering or not, whatever the case, but you should train, do that. And that is really the main point. You know, making ourselves, cultivating mental strength within ourselves. This Tonglen practice, taking and giving. Practice is very much whether we really take other suffering upon ourselves or not, whether we really give our virtues to others or not, sincerely, genuinely, practicing that mentally, it builds mental strength. It builds mental strength. Then the next one is, it has been taught that if one desires enlightenment, it is necessary. So why it is saying it is one desires necessary? So enlightenment, when we talk about enlightenment, some of you know this very clearly. Yeah, we have time. When we talk about bodhicitta, mind of enlightenment, many of you remember that it has two elements, two mental states, precisely two aspirations in that mind, which is called bodhicitta. Mind which is called bodhicitta, or the altruistic awakened mind. In that mind, it has that mind is so-called bodhicitta. It is a result of culmination of two aspirations. And many of you who have learned the bodhicitta, you know this. Two aspirations. Two aspirations are cultivated again and again and again. And when these two aspirations become very spontaneously experienced in our mental continuum, then we got the bodhicitta. So what are the two aspirations? Can you say something, people who have learned the bodhicitta module? I have explained that very clearly in that module. So two aspirations are, the first aspiration is aspiration, to benefit or to serve all living beings. That is the first aspiration. But having that aspiration alone will not count as a bodhicitta. Although you have this aspiration to serve all living beings without any exception, but that alone will not serve, not sufficient as a bodhicitta, but you have to have the second aspiration. That second aspiration is aspiration to experience enlightenment. Those are the two aspirations. If you recall the earlier that we read or chant those 4 lines, refuge and bodhicitta, and the last line, first 2 lines are refuge, and the last 2 lines are bodhicitta. So out of the last 2 lines, the 4th one in Tibetan, dollar penchel, in English, to benefit all living beings. That's the one. That's the aspiration that we are talking about. Then the remaining line, dollar penchel, sanje dubasho. That's the second aspiration. Sanje dubasho, that means to accomplish or to experience or to attain, if we use that word, enlightenment. So must have those two. Without those two, even if you have only one, that strong aspiration to attain enlightenment, but if lacking the first one, that will not count as a bodhicitta. But if you have the first one, aspiration to benefit all living beings, but if you don't have the second one, second aspiration, will not count. So being to experience bodhicitta must have those two aspirations. That is very clearly explained in that last line, Dola Pencher, in order to benefit all living beings. Sangye Tobasho, to become enlightenment. That is important. Okay, so what I'm saying this one. So, in this text, when it says, whatever the case may be, train in this way, Dromtönpa. What is the purpose of such training? So, what is the purpose of training that, taking all living beings suffering upon oneself and giving whatever virtues, wholesome goodness that we have to others? So what is the purpose? If the what you call the real sufferings are not really, taken upon oneself, the real happiness are not really given to others, but mental training, then the answer is it has been taught that if one desires enlightenment, it is necessary. So it is necessary. What is necessary is that kind of mental strength. That kind of mental strength is necessary because people who have desire to attain enlightenment, then you must have those two aspirations to benefit living beings. And that is the important one. If there's no mental strength, when it comes real to take suffering from others, then there is a risk. Your bodhicitta may lose. You may lose your bodhicitta. One of the main, what you call the causes to losing bodhicitta is backing down to serve when there is opportunity, when there is a chance, even if one person, one living being, if there's a chance you can serve, if you, due to lack of mental strength, if we back down, then there is a risk. That is one of the main risks, to lose our bodhicitta. So that is here, this taking and giving practice is really very much to build the mental strength. Build the mental strength. Then, though at the meditation, when we take some living beings suffering upon ourselves, may not, pour entire suffering upon ourselves. When we give all our virtues to others, may not go away, may not get less, but really, very honestly, sincerely, genuinely embracing that will build mental strength. It is like in our ordinary life. In our ordinary life, if you are going to go to a very important interview, or job interview that you badly want, many of you have done. Luckily, I haven't done in my life, which I feel very, very lucky. When I was in UK, I saw several times people are very nervous going for the interview and go to buy the best suits or whatever. And anyway, but we do what's called a rehearsal, to prepare. And that is the thing. It is the same. Really, it is the same. But this one is much bigger. Yes, important interview, to go to important interview is very important, but it is just one person's job. When you're talking about, holding bodhicitta, then we're talking about something numberless living beings, well-beings. So really, this is what here very nicely explained in here. Then Dom asks, who taught you this teaching? It is very nice. He says, which teacher taught this? And then, the Atisha says, teacher Selingpa taught this. So Selingpa was the Atisha's main teacher that taught cultivation of bodhicitta. Selingpa lived in modern time in Indonesia. In Indonesia, one of those islands. What Atisha was really searching while he was in India at that time, around 11th century, searching who will teach this kind of, cultivation of bodhicitta. And he searched in India, but then eventually he heard there is this in that island, there's this teacher. So he went there. And this is one thing which we should what's the right word? We should acknowledge how lucky that we are. Those days, and also these days too, those days, these great teachers to receive these amazing teachings, their sacrifice, sometimes even their life, go for a long distance and, with the, have a little sort of safety nets and all those things. And for us, in this 21st century, we can receive all these teachings in our sitting room, in our bedroom, quite easily. Just switch on our computer or whatever laptop, then here we are here. So, but that is sometimes, we take for granted. We don't recognize how lucky that we are. I mean, for example, receiving teachings from His Holiness Dalai Lama, like his age, 87 or 8, like that. And really, on this planet, at this time, have an opportunity to receive teachings from this kind of amazing teacher or teachers, and these amazing teachings. So this is very, again, very down to earth questions. Who taught this? And the Atisha said, "Oh, Selingpa taught this." And who taught the Selingpa? And countless teachers. And of course, there are many great teachers. So then it moves to the actual practice, taken and given practice based on the breathing in and out. When you breathe out, you give your virtues wholesome. When you breathe in, take in all the sufferings, difficulties of living beings. But as you know, this taken and given practice is done based on love and compassion. Love and compassion. When you with your breathe in, when you breathe in and with your breathing imagining you're taking in all the sufferings of the all living beings with a strong compassion to all living beings. Compassion is the key sort of like if you have feed a child and from the pot you take whatever porridge or milk by a spoon, then feed to the mouth of the child. Similar to that, taking in the sufferings of the living beings out of strong compassion to all living beings. All living. And when you breathe out, with the breathing out, when you give all your virtues, wholesome, no matter how small, then with strong love. This is what clearly mentioned in those great texts. Taken is done with the compassion, and given is done with the love. So, as you know, the love is very much focused on what living beings are lacking. Living beings are lacking genuine happiness, and you would like to provide that. Now, compassion is very much focused on what living beings are going through. They are going through samsaric turbulence, and that is what you call the compassion. Is in reality, these two can be the two sides of the same coin. Two sides of the same coin, but the different people and different situations may have may approach with differently, sometimes with love, sometimes with compassion, but the end product will be the same. Will be the same. So this countless teachers taught him. In that case, Master, what is the method of this taking? Don't draw forth of sufferings of all by means of your breath. And that is what here it continues. So it is really, beautifully explained in this, within this, dialogue between the master and the students. Now then, that is continued, and then the next page there is then moving to a little bit on the if you people who are familiar, and I'm sure many of you, not necessarily in the in Tsongkhapa's tradition, but also other Tibetan Buddhist tradition, like the Kagyu or Nyingma tradition, that Lamrim teaching, initially have this explanation of suffering, impermanence, then renunciation, then bodhicitta, then emptiness, and comes like that. But this one is very much, other way around. Emptiness, bodhicitta, then explaining the nature of samsara, which start from the next page, page 287. It says. How do you from the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, line 5? It says, how do you act towards your friends? I shake my head and run away. Don't. So it is really very much talking about, there isn't that much friends to be very much close, enemy to be very much distance. And that's what here Atisha is demonstrating, that. And it says, Master, do you not meet with any friends at all? So it is very, honest question. When he said, I run, so then he said, don't you meet any friends? Don't you feel any lonely? So like that sort of things. And here once I did meet with one, once I did meet with one. Did you, then it goes, did you not shake your head then? And then Dom, the answer is Dom, he ran away due to the effects of my Dharma practice. And that is true, that is true. Generally speaking, worldly, we are very much attracted to worldly things and events. We are not very much attracted towards the Dharma, Dharma things and events. It is clearly demonstrated in here as well as in the West. In the Dharma centers, even there is a nice tea, cake, and not many people will come. But sometimes when you have a big party, quite a lot of people come. So now the Christmas time, so big party Dharma centers may become quite busy. But usually when you have advertised, arranged teaching classes, not that many people will come. So that is clearly what here they are having the discussion, and it is their time, and it is happening our time too. So worldly things. So he says, Dom, he ran away due to the effect of my Dharma practice. Did you hear what happened in the Indian plans? Saying the kings. So this is very much another story of how what are the attraction in India and so on and so forth. But I will not read this one. So then the next one is really very much last part of is practicing law of cause and effect. Really paying attention to our actions of the body, speech, and mind. That is very much in the last those lines in that page 287. It says, Master, if there is no danger, this is highly profitable. No, there's no danger of being let down by this practice. Master, due to my past karma, I have heard the Dharma. There are teachings in the law of karma and its effects. Master, yes. Yes, there is. There is in this source of essential point. So here, source of essential point, which is, and this when quite often, when people ask, how can you summarize the entire teachings of the Buddha, then quite often summarize into those 4 lines. Quite often we recite in the not to commit any non-virtues. That is here law of cause and effect. Not to engage or not to commit any non-virtues. Do as much as you can, as excellent as you can, the virtues. Third line, to really train one's own mind. That is the teachings of the Buddha. So that 4 lines, quite often, we say, we talk when people ask, can you summarize the teachings of the Buddha? And in those 4 lines. So these first 2 lines, saying not to engage or not to commit any non-virtues, there also extend the bodhicitta. That's the bottom line. Intentionally, deliberately not harming others is the bottom line of what Buddha taught. And if you can, help, support. Then that's more to the different layers, different levels. So they're here talking about law of cause and effect. Why we should not engage in non-virtues. That our actions of non-virtues cause pain. It has consequences, not only to those receivers, but also to ourselves. So that is here, he says, yes, there is in this source of essential point. And, I've never spoken of something that has been no base. So then the last part of this teaching, which I thought very nicely summarized, Master, if one were to summarize everything, how should one do so? With faith in the law of cause and effect, with faith, law of karma, and its effect on. So that is really how Atisha summarized. Faith in the sense, have the conviction, have the conviction, have the understanding that if you commit the non-virtues, there is a unpleasant consequences. If we create the virtues, there's wholesome consequences. And that's the meaning of how, the Atisha have faith in law of karma and its effects strong. Master, this then is a collection on the echoes and illusion. Don't bring together all of these well and let it go. So summary is, bring that law of cause and effect is there, but still not. They are not there intrinsically, inherently, in and of themselves. Through the different process, different things and events then come together. And here it says, the collection of echoes and illusions. So that is the really very much the conclusion of reading this beautiful text from Kadamba collections. And so here we are going to end. So thank you for coming or participating, not really coming to the center, but participating on screen, which is very, very nice, to see so many familiar faces. And I want to say thank you for joining me here, and also thank you for Peter and Tree, who all the time being there, organizes, and send the information and so forth. And also I would like to say, because Christmas is coming, although some of you may not celebrate, but whether you celebrate or not, I want to say Merry Christmas. As a being pretending as a Westerner, although I'm not Westerner. But yes, enjoy your life, no matter whatever surface the trouble, difficulties, challenges. Still, as a human beings, compared to other species, we have human brain, human mind, human emotion. We live in human society, and we have human company. So, and most, for us as a Buddhist, we have those great teachers, those great teachings, and so recognize, acknowledge, though there are challenges, difficulties, but still I'm lucky. I have the access to these things, rejoice what virtues that you are able to do in this 2022, and look forward to 2023. Though we don't know what's there in 2023, but we all, there's no point all the time, thinking there's some kind of unpleasant things there in 2023. We don't know, But whatever comes, as just said, human beings, we should use the human, the means and methods and skills that we learn for thousands of years by those great teachers. And as a Buddhist, more than 2,000 years, cultures, teachings, those great teachers still in front of us. So those are the means and methods that we should use, to ease difficulties, challenges, to enjoy the samsaric things as illusions and as echoes. So that is I want to say. Yeah. Thank you. So we'll say 21 Tara prayers as a last teachings in this year, and say the long life prayer for His Holiness and all those great teachers. Omoje Tsering Pama Droma La Cha Se Lo Cha Se Droma Nyuma Bang Jene Geje Lo Dang Zhang Jide Sungwe Chuje She Di Kesa Chewa Lene Zhong Cha Se Dongge Dawa Gun Tu Kangwa Jene Zikbe She Kama Dongda Choba Nama Rado Chewe Rambara Chanze Seme Chone Je Peme Chane Nambara Je Jemba Tundru Kato Shewa Seba Samden Juni Chanze Teshin Shebe Toto Taye Nambara Jawa Je Malu Paro Jimba Tope Jave Seji Shindu Dem Chanze Tuda Ranghong Yige Dudan Chota Namka Kang Jikten Dombo Shaki Nende Leba Meba Guba Nem Chanze Jajin Mela Tsamba Nongla Naso Wanchu Che Jombo Rola Tisa Namanda Nijun Soki Dune Dem Chanze Teje Chadang Peji Paro Chugu Rado Jom Ego Yenjang Shaki Nende Mebara Chugu Shindo Baram Chanze Turi Jigba Chenpo Tuji Pao Nambara Jong Chuji Shane Chonye Tenze Zhao Tamje Malu Se Chanze Kunjo Sumzen Chaje Seme Toga Nambara Jem Malu Choje Kolo Jembe Rangje Eje Sonam Chu Chanze Rado Gawa Jebe Ujen Eje Tengwa Be Sheba Rapshe Tuda Rai Dudan Jigden Wando Zem Chanze Sashi Jongwe Sonam Tamje Guba Nuba Nyem Chonye Yewa Yige Hongge Pongba Tamje Nambara Jola Chanze Dawe Dombu Ujen Jemba Tamje Shindo Para Rebe Chone Eba Mene Tabara Shindo Rabazem Chanze Gebe Tama Men Barwe Tengwe Une Men Eja Yungum Kune Koke Daye Pune Nambara Jo Chanze Sashi Ngala Chake Teje Nujin Shaki Dong Chonye Chenze Yege Hongge Rinpa Dumbo Namne Gem Chanze Tema Kema Shema Nyangen Deshin Junyem Soa Omda Yanda Dembe Dingwa Chenpo Chompa Nyem Chanze Kune Korawa Kawe Daye Lune Nambara Gem Ige Jube Ngane Kobe Rinpa Hongle Droma Nyem Chanze Turi Shamne Dabe Hongge Nabe Sabe Nyem Rira Meda Ratang Biche Jigden Sumna Yewa Nyem Chanze Lai Soye Nabe Rita Tajin Chana Nam Tara Nichu Peji Ke Duna Malu Panesem Chanze Lai Sonam Jepo Tata Miam Chidem Gune Kocha Kawa Chiji Zeda Melwange Basem Chanze Nima Tawa Jepe Jinye Bola Verosem Hara Niju Tudara Shindo Chabu Rimnesem Chanze Tini Sumnam Gube Shive Tudan Yantadem Tudan Rona Nujun Sonam Jomba Duri Rajo Nim Zawe Ngaji Deba Tita Chanze Wane Nishu Sache Dewa di jiwo gen sanama yishe todo she sanama yishe le chung we tamba kuni tobara sho chanjo semjo rinpoche maje panama je gyuro je jeba nyamba meba yang kone kondo Pewara sho Kangri Rave Korve Shinkamade Pendang Dewa Malu Jungwe Ne Jere Sewa Tenzin Jaso Ye Shabe Sede Pato Tenjuro Je Oh yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank
Yeah.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Geshe.
Thank you.
Thank
All the
you.
best, Geshe. Have a good Christmas, bye.
Thank you, Geshe. Happy
Thank you.
safe travels.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.
Yes, good travel.
I was
Thank
told
you.
people who are grown up in the UK or in the Europe, the Christmas is always having a white Christmas. But then they move to New Zealand or this part of the world. Christmas is summer during the summer.
Exactly.
So my last many years Christmas mainly in the West, but last 5 years, including this coming in the East, so in India. Anyway, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Safe
much,
travels.
Geshe.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
everyone.
I will see you next year.
Yeah,
Yes.
take
See you
care.
next year.
Here.
Well.